and provides support, confidence and...
I'd say he's been eaten by something.
Don't worry, it's all very civilised. All that misery and suffering makes me tingle.
Brand new Midsummer Murders, Wednesday at 8 on ITV.
Now, with all the latest headlines, it's the ITV News and weather.
Hello and welcome to ITV News West Country. I'm Ian Axton.
And I'm Ellie Barker. Tonight's main stories. Anger as the Environment Secretary visits Somerset. He pledges help for flood victims, but is accused of empty promises and further delays.
We've got the farmers here, we've got members of the public here, we've got people that live here, and he's not here. He's not here listening to the actual people who are having to go through what they're going through.
Also tonight, a year on, the family of a couple killed by a driver who was banned speak of their ongoing heartache and their fight to change the law.
Rifling through residents' rubbish, the controversial move by One West Council to clean up its streets.
And the Brownies celebrate their centenary. We join hundreds of youngsters marking the landmark occasion. Good evening. The Environment Secretary Owen Paterson was confronted by furious residents today when he visited Somerset. Locals who've been badly affected by flooding accused the government of failing to do enough to help them.
Mr Patterson said he understood people's anger and promised that a new plan to deal with flooding in the region would be drawn up within 6 weeks. But that led to accusations of further delays. Here's our Somerset correspondent David Woodland.
They didn't expect him to perform miracles by walking on water, but they did expect him to help get rid of the stuff. The Environment Secretary Owen Paterson came to see the efforts being made at Moorland Pumping Station, where 2 extra pumps were installed at the weekend. He told ITV that he was giving the Environment Agency and local partners 6 weeks to come up with a plan to combat flooding here, and he promised he would sign that plan if satisfied it would work.
Just you wait and see what I've said. I've been absolutely clear.
Sign off on it?
This government is spending it is spending more money than any previous government on flood defences.
Will you be able to sign off on a plan that they present?
If you'll let me get a word in edgeways, I will answer your question.
Just answer
we are
it.
going to be spending more leading up to 2020 than any government on cattle projects. If this plan satisfies me, yes, I will sign it off.
You will sign it off if it satisfies you.
The locals have 6 weeks to work with the national government, the local agencies to come up with a good, concrete plan. If they convince me, yes, we will sign it off.
Local residents were less than satisfied that Mr Patterson didn't speak to them. That didn't stop them speaking to him.
Why was this not done ages ago? Why have you only started doing this now? Why have you only just started putting the pumps out now? Why was this not done ages ago? Think of all the poor people's lives that have been ruined because of this. Spoken to no one, has he? We've got the farmers here, we've got members of the public here, we've got people that live here, and he's not here. He's not here listening to the actual people who are having to go through what they're going through with the flooding, with the water. No, it's not on, it's not right.
1 million tonnes of water is being pumped from the levels each week now, and water levels at Moorland have gone down an inch since Saturday. The pumping operation is costing £100,000 a week, but old photographs, these from 1976, show the river used to have a much bigger capacity. So will the action plan give the Environment Agency enough money to start dredging?
I don't know the answer to that question. What I do know is that he came here to see it for himself. He saw it, he's spoken to a lot of people, a lot of different voices, and I'll be honest and say he didn't come here to speak to the Environment Agency, he came here to speak to everybody else, and that's what he did, and we'll see.
What locals want to ensure is that once the waters subside, the political pressure for a solution doesn't subside too.
Well, one of the MPs who has been most critical of the Environment Agency is Bridgwater MP Ian Littlegranger.
Well, I spoke to him at the Northmoor pumping station at Moorland today and got his reaction to what Owen Paterson had to say.
He wants a 6-week action plan put together, and then he will look at actually signing off, getting this river dredged, putting in power back into local people to make sure it happens, a long-term viability plan so we can hold water, plant trees, do all the things we need to do to steady the flow, and really make sure that this area for the future actually is sustainable and that we don't continue to have these awful floods.
There are some very angry people here, very angry that the Secretary of State came here and he didn't even get his feet wet. He hasn't visited a single flooded property.
Well, actually, he's spoken to all the people he needs to speak to. This is an action plan. To stand in a property is quite easy. What actually we need is a long-term viable plan, which is what we've discussed. And he's met with community people, he's met with the internal drainage boards, the councils, farmers on the levels, who are standing here just behind me. So he has listened to what needs to be done. The main thing is we understand what we've got to do to alleviate what is going on behind me year on, year out.
You effectively asked him to come here to write a cheque for £5 million and to get on with the dredging. What we've got is a 6-week delay.
No, we haven't. We've actually got what we need to have done, we should have really probably done about 20 years ago, before Baroness Young took over the Environment Agency, which is actually say this is an artificial river. All of this has been built by man from the Roman times. You don't need all the worries and concerns of Brussels to actually dredge the river. We will deliver that. We can't do anything at the moment anyway, it's too wet. So let's get it delivered when it's still wet, let's get it to the Secretary of State, and let's get it signed off so we can get on with the work we need to do.
You saw the scenes here when he arrived. It was pretty shambolic. You'd have passed the sign saying Patterson out on your way here. Is he a man that's in control of his department?
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt. If you'd heard the meetings last night and this morning, he was very set on what was going to happen. He made it very clear to us what he wants. We've risen to that challenge locally at all levels of the community, and we will deliver on it, because at the end of the day, the people on these levels and the levels themselves matter. They're our heritage. They're our workplace. This is our homes. We can't walk away from here, so we've got to deliver, and we will.
Well, we can now cross live to our Somerset correspondent, David Woodland. David, how are those most affected feeling tonight?
Well, they weren't overly impressed by Mr. Patterson's visit. He arrived in a pristine Range Rover, didn't bring any Wellington boots, which people weren't impressed with, and then he didn't speak to any of them. Now, you may have heard in my report one lady being quite angry. She's with me now, Rebecca Riley. Rebecca, what did you want to say to Mr. Patterson? Had you got an interview with him?
To be honest, basically what it was, we just wanted to be able to just put our facts out, that the dredging and everything, the pumps, they all should have been installed a lot earlier than what they were.
How confident are you now that something might happen?
I'd like to say 100%, but until we see the actual report, until we see things starting to work, 50-50.
How much money do you think is needed?
See, that's a good question. They're talking about how much, 40 million to dredge? We don't know, that's the thing. All we know, all we want is it to be dredged, and we don't want this to ever happen again. The lives that have been, disturbed, disrupted, is just ridiculous.
Do you feel you've been abandoned here on the levels to a certain extent by the government and by the Environment Agency?
The people on the ground, I will say, the Environment Agency here have worked their socks off. They have been wonderful, they have helped us. Higher up, not so much, no. So in a way we do feel abandoned, yes.
Rebecca, thanks. James, if I can turn to you, you're Rebecca's partner and a farmer. You're having to cope with terrible circumstances at the moment. You're on your father's farm under a lot of water. While Mr. Patterson was here, just 50 yards away, one of your cows was giving birth. How difficult has it been for you?
Well, very difficult, because we've lost a lot of our sheds for being underwater, so we're having to make makeshift pens and basically trying to make the best out of a really bad situation.
Rebecca and James, thanks very much indeed. Well, I spoke to another farmer couple who live just over the other side of the river Parrett there. It's actually a 30-minute drive because of the floods, and they're reasonably confident that something will now happen.
I think it's a fairly good sign that they've actually come down to have a look at the situation, and it would be nice if they could have made an announcement. Hopefully what they'll do is say that they're going to give some money towards the dredging. I'm kind of hoping that they don't give that responsibility to the Environment Agency.
Well, the local MP, Ian Littlegranger, tells me he's going to go hopefully to Holland to see how they deal with floods and feed that into the process. So something hopefully will happen soon.
OK, David, thank you very much.
Next tonight, MPs are this evening debating a change in the law after the death of a couple from South Gloucestershire who were knocked down and killed by a hit-and-run driver who had already been disqualified from driving several times.
Ross and Claire Simons died a year ago today. Their families have started a petition calling for longer sentences in cases like this involving banned drivers. Bob Constantine reports.
This is a difficult day for Edwin Simons and his family. On January the 27th last year, his son Ross and